The MonsterVerse has had its ups and downs in regards to its box office and critical reception. Kong Skull Island experienced growth in the box office over the already successful Godzilla 2014, but its follow-up, Godzilla King of the Monsters, experienced a significant fall in box office returns and bombed critically, seemingly failing to live up to the competition at the time. But here we are, Godzilla vs. Kong has, for all intents and purposes, finished its theatrical run. So, was it a success, or has the MonsterVerse continued to slump? Before we get to answering that question, be sure to follow us on Twitter at DangerVille Team to be the first to hear about all the news before we even make a video about it. Right, let's not waste any more time, let's get to it! Welcome back, residents, Alistair here. I'm aiming to make this video as objective as possible, a simple observation on whether Godzilla vs. Kong succeeded in a general sense, mainly attempting to answer the question, did it make money and did people like it? You might believe it's simple to come to a conclusion that it was a success by comparing the budget to the box office growth, but you have to take in marketing costs, theatre cuts, digital sales, and tax in order to come to a final number. For any of you residents, you know how painful the wait for Godzilla vs. Kong was. We've been reporting on this film since the channel was created in 2017. We've seen fake trailer leaks, real trailer leaks, toy leaks, poster leaks, story leaks. We've made theories, news videos, and opinion videos, all essentially clueless until they properly began marketing the film in January 2021, with a release date of March 31st of the same year. The trailer was a big deal. It gave audiences hope that they could return to cinemas with a bombastic new blockbuster, and the viewing figures reflected that, because the trailer blew up, and as it stands, it's now Warner Bros.' highest viewed trailer. So the film was off to a good start, but with only 3 months until release, there was a genuine worry that this wasn't enough time to market the film for the masses. And with COVID still running rampant, was it enough time for audiences to feel safe heading back to the cinema? It was especially peculiar since Godzilla King of the Monsters and Kong Skull Island both had around a year between their first trailer and the film's release. Prior to Godzilla vs. Kong, the shortest marketing scheme for the MonsterVerse was Godzilla 2014, which had 5 months between the trailer's release, which was in December 2013, to the film's release in May 2014. And guess what? It was the only trailer that was released for Godzilla vs. Kong. The only other previews were a variety of short TV spots that really didn't reveal too much, which is night and day difference to the many King of the Monsters trailers and its countless ad spots that revealed way too much about the film. It's clear Warner Bros. Is trying a different tactic to the previous films, and with little competition, it meant Godzilla vs. Kong had the spotlight for most of its marketing campaign, whilst also saving money, costing Warner Bros. Around $80 million, the lowest in the MonsterVerse. But, and this is a big but, there were some drawbacks to their rather short and quiet marketing campaign. Warner Bros. And Legendary went extended periods of time without telling audiences in countries outside of the US how they'd be able to even watch the film. Americans knew they'd be able to see it on HBO Max and theaters, but in the UK, where cinemas were closed, they didn't tell us that we'd be able to see the film digitally until a few days before release, which was especially bad for me since my job revolves exclusively around making Godzilla content. So I was running around like a headless chicken trying to find out how I could watch it. And for some countries like Germany, there was a complete radio silence. There was immense confusion thanks to the pandemic having different severities depending on the country. There were worries that this would lead to the film's failure. But would this be the case?
Now to that big weekend at the box office with Godzilla vs. Kong, the biggest blockbuster of the pandemic.
The film released in the US on March 31st, 2021, on only 55% of theaters across the nation, with the majority of those cinemas operating at only 50% capacity. Over its first weekend, it took in $32.2 million at the box office. And whilst in normal circumstances that's not anything to write home about, it stood as the biggest opening of the pandemic up to that point, and exceeded all expectations. Originally, it was projected to earn $23 million in its first 5 days, but in reality, it grossed $48 million. In China, the film earned a whopping $71.6 million in its opening weekend, becoming the highest opening by a Hollywood release since the pandemic began. Through its entire run, Godzilla vs. Kong grossed a minimum of $467.8 million. I say minimum mainly because Box Office Mojo has stopped updating the total earnings, and with it still playing in some theaters across the world, it's likely to be a little higher, with some standout countries being $100.6 million from the United States, $21.4 million from Australia, $20 million from Mexico, $17 million from Japan, and a whopping $188.7 million from China. For some countries where theaters were still shut, Godzilla vs. Kong came out only digitally, like in the UK, where I live, where it was released on Amazon Prime as a home premiere exclusive. And whilst Amazon doesn't provide the information about viewing figures, Warner Bros. Thankfully announced that 225,000 people rented the movie. And at £15.99 per rental, that equals £3.6 million in digital sales. And when cinemas in the UK reopened in June, that brought an additional £3.6 million, which is impressive considering Warner Bros. Did not market the film whatsoever when cinemas reopened. Most people didn't even know cinemas are open again. With all this calculated, Godzilla vs. Kong bowed out of the UK market with a grand total of $9.9 million. This isn't the only way people watch the film digitally, as in the US, citizens also had the option of watching it on HBO Max, a subscription service that Godzilla vs. Kong arrived at from day one. And Warner Bros. Has revealed that 3.6 million households watched the film on the platform. This meant Godzilla vs. Kong had the largest viewing audience over any other film or show on HBO Max, beating out the likes of Wonder Woman 1984 and Zack Snyder's Justice League. However, being available digitally from day one had its drawbacks, since pirates were able to copy the film and upload it to pirating websites. This cost Legendary millions of dollars worth of income, which makes it even more impressive that the film was as successful as it was. This technique was proven to be necessary during the pandemic, since some people weren't ready to go back to theaters yet. But it's definitely not a light decision for film studios to make, since because of the pirates, it's a risk-reward scenario. Thankfully, the pirates were greatly overshadowed by the people willing to pay for a rental or subscription to watch the movie legally. But was it enough to turn a profit? All this money goes against the film's production budget, of course. Now, there's been a few different numbers that's been thrown around, some going as low as $155 million, with some as high as $200 million. But after Adam Wingard confirmed Godzilla vs. Kong had the least reshoots out of any of the MonsterVerse films, the general consensus for the budget is that the film cost around $165 million. And according to Variety, Legendary needed to cross at least $330 million in order to break even. This is due to marketing costs and the portions of ticket sales that theater companies take, which is 40%. China normally takes a far higher portion of the profits. But since Legendary, the studio that makes the films, is owned by Wanda, a Chinese company, they likely take a far smaller margin away from the studio. The total gross is also helped by the fact Warner Bros. Paid Legendary approximately $200 million to have Godzilla vs. Kong on HBO Max from day one. Though it's likely that the $200 million will be shared across a variety of Legendary properties releasing on the service, like Dune, coming out later this year. So, if Variety's calculation is correct, it means Legendary gained a profit of $137.8 million, which makes it a smashing success at the box office. But what about the critics? Was it a success or a failure? The film has received generally favorable reviews, earning on average a rating of 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb, and holds a Rotten Tomatoes score of 76%. The general consensus is the film delivers on the title by being a fun time that sacrifices character development for a bombastic monster adventure. Empire magazine gives the film 2 out of 5 stars, stating you'll have a good time with the monster action if you're willing to sit through the toe-curlingly bad setup that surrounds it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the spectrum, The Guardian gives it 4 out of 5 stars, stating it's a goofy and hugely enjoyable action-adventure that delivers the big dumb thrills that many of us have been craving. So, by looking at it from an objective, observational standpoint, the film performed moderately well in this department, although whether you like the film or not is obviously down to the viewer. So to conclude this analysis, can we say that Godzilla vs. Kong was a failure or a success? Well, the film earned a relatively huge profit, which was in part thanks to a short and sweet marketing campaign, and the film received positive reviews. So with everything we know, I think it's safe to say it's a resounding success. Although the communication is definitely an aspect that Warner Bros. Should improve on in the future. The film stood as almost a test for the movie industry. It was going to answer the question on whether a film could succeed in the current climate of the pandemic. It's thanks to Godzilla vs. Kong that films are being released today. Fast and Furious 9, A Quiet Place 2, Black Widow, Cruella, and The Conjuring all relied on the success of the MonsterVerse. And even now, Godzilla vs. Kong is the 4th highest grossing film of the year, standing high above the latest Marvel entry, which is certainly a sight to behold. If Godzilla vs. Kong will be recognized for anything, it will be the film that got butts back in the cinema seats. And after a long and stressful time period, the film acted as a catharsis for many people, a way to let off some steam and switch off for nearly 2 hours of monster action. It may not be a masterpiece, but it's exactly what many people needed. The film was a make or break it for the series, but thanks to its success, even in a pandemic, a continuation of the MonsterVerse is all but confirmed, with Max Borenstein, the writer of Godzilla 2014, Kong Skull Island and Godzilla vs. Kong, stating interesting new installments are coming, and that he's excited to see where Legendary takes the franchise. And we'll be covering it all here at DangerVille when that time comes, so be sure to subscribe and stomp that notification button to become a resident of DangerVille today. Did you enjoy Godzilla vs. Kong? Let us know in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this analysis, then leave a like, because it helps this video reach even more fans. I've been Alistair, and we'll see you residents in the next one.